All right, UFC Qatar, Arman Tsarukyan versus Dan, the Hangman Hooker. This is going to be a good follow-up card from UFC 322. This is a pretty stacked card. This is some good competition. Not a lot of low level guys. It's pretty respectable names. So yeah, without further ado, let's get right into this. All right, first fight of the card: Marek Bujlo versus Denzel Freeman. Bujlo coming in at that plus 175 dog. Denzel Freeman coming in at that minus 210 favorite. Marek Bujlo, 32 years old, 6-0 pro record. This is his UFC debut. He's training over there at Dragon's Den Fight Club team. He has 3 consecutive ground and pound wins, pretty impressive, all inside the first round. And he also has a high level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game. Fought over there at the BFN and the USWM fight leagues. Haven't seen much from the stand-up, honestly, in the fights. He definitely looks to get the fight to the ground, so it's hard for me to really say if he's good or bad at the stand-up. But every fight he's in, it's getting to the ground, pretty much. That's his whole objective. That's his whole goal. That's where he shines. So we'll see if he can get that done versus Denzel Freeman, who's 34 years old, coming in 6-1 pro record. This is also his UFC debut. He was 2-0 in the LFA, and he was 1-1 in the PFL. Any fighter that can get to the PFL, that shows some good talent right there. He trains over there at Pound for Pound Muay Thai. He was, keep in mind, he was an NAIA runner-up in wrestling. So depending on the college too, that could show a lot. He's also a red belt in Taekwondo, and I know he has one loss back in the regional scene, and I believe he was down at lightweight. And this is at heavyweight, and he just didn't look like he had that same energy when he was at that weight class. And now looking at him at the bigger weight class, man, he looks pretty good. The only thing I'll say is he doesn't look too good when he's pressured on the feet, but I don't see Marek Bujlo doing that. I see him trying to get the fight to the ground and playing around with a wrestler like this. This is going to be a good start to the card right here. I'm going to go Denzel Freeman. I'm going to go KO. I think he knocks him out. I think the athleticism from him is really going to make a difference. Bujlo is going to be the taller guy, coming in at 6'4", and yeah, we're going Denzel Freeman by KO. He's just going to be faster, have the speed advantage. You see him getting this done. All right, let's move on. All right, coming into the lightweight division, we got Nurilo Aliyev, the Tajik Eagle, and versus Shokim Shamrock. God, and this whole card is full of names like this. That's the tough part. All right. Aliyev, the Tajik Eagle, he's 24 years old, coming in a 10-0 pro record, 2-0 in the UFC. He had a big KO on Dana White's Contender Series. You see it. You see the beard. You see the no mustache. You know what time it is. That whole area, it's like Kazakhstan, you know what I mean? Dagestan. If it has the stan, they don't got the stash. That's simple. And these guys are all heavy wrestlers. He's a elite wrestler. He does have some finishes by KO. I think two of the 10 fights that he does have are by way of KO. So he shows that power. I don't think it's in the UFC yet. But one thing I noticed too, he doesn't really finish by sub a lot of times. He gets people to the ground, he controls them, but he's not really getting these subs. So we'll see if he's improving on that. I know in one of the fights versus Rafael Alves, he bit his finger. He was trying to I guess Alves stuck it in there somehow, and yeah, he ended up biting it. It was pretty interesting, pretty funny in the fight. But Shaquem Shamrock, he's coming in out of the Cage Warriors, training over there with Paddy Pimblett. 12-2 pro record. He's 32 years old. I want to say no, he's at Octagon MMA, not Cage Warriors. Training over there with Paddy Pimblett though, next generation. He's a very confident guy, just such as Paddy Pimblett. You know, I'm a grappler. You know, he's he has a lot of enthusiasm to him. He has elite BJJ grappling. That's where he usually looks to get these fights too. His stand up is pretty questionable for me. He kind of stands still. You know, he has good teep kicks. He's decent at creating separation, but I think once you're in the UFC and you start getting into those elite, no mustache wearing wrestlers, it's gonna take a toll on you. That pressure, you can only teep kick that for so long. You know what I mean? He's the younger fighter in this. You know, a lot fresher with the experience. You know, rather than Shaquem Shamrock, and you know, he had a good he had a long layoff too. He had a year off, then he came back and fought, and then got like a split decision win or something like that. Maybe something like that. And so, you know, excited to see how he comes out. I think if he comes out full swing and he's looking as healthy as can be, and he's willing to be a little bit more aggressive in the striking, he has a chance at winning this. You know, that'll make that plus 230 look pretty good. And this is a tough one because I really like him in the tape, just that last fight. But we're gonna trust the no mustache. We're gonna go Nurulio Aliyev by decision. I think he's just gonna get the control time. He knows the UFC game by now. But one thing I want to throw out is that sub from Shamrock is live. He can pull it off. You know, he's elite enough. I think he has that in his bag of tricks. So yeah, we're gonna go Aliyev by decision. All right, Ismail Nordiev versus Ryan Loder. This is a pretty good stylistic matchup here. Both heavy grapplers. Ismail coming in at that minus 130 favorite. Ryan Loder coming in at that plus 110 underdog. So, you know, it's an even fight. Ismail Nardiev, 29 years old, 24-8, pro record, 3-3 in the UFC. He fought in Brave fight and ACB mostly before the UFC. He's at Top Team, high level wrestling. Surprised, does he have the mustache? He might not. He might just have a little scruff on the bottom, no mustache. He's gonna get there. One thing I noticed though, his shots are incredibly fast. And Ryan Loder is a very strong guy and a great wrestler. But as far as straight pure athleticism, you know, I think Ismail has the advantage here. This is a tough one for me, honestly. This is a really tough one for me. I really want to go Ryan Loder on this one. I think the wrestling is good and the strength is what's going to play the big role versus a guy like this, honestly. But Ismail, you know, he's the one thing I don't like from him, he is open to taking a lot of jabs, but Ryan Loder is not known for his striking. So yeah, this is a tough one. I'm gonna be 100% honest. You know, Ryan Loder, he's training over there at Team Alpha Male, 34 years old, 7-2 pro record, 1-1 in the UFC. He did lose to Azamet Bukayev, which I think is a really good fighter, honestly. You know, despite the loss that he just recently took, I think he's pretty good. So I'm not gonna take that too harsh. And I'm gonna go Ryan Loder by decision. I'm gonna have faith in the strength. You know, the technique is gonna be there on the Ismail side, but Ryan Loder has good enough technique, but better strength. He's the stronger fighter here, and I think those scrambles on the ground are really gonna show. You know, as long as he can stay active, stay moving while getting taken down or attempting a takedown, you know, don't give up on it. You got to finish. use that sheer strength and push through, Ryan Loder can pull this off. So, but yeah, this is a very close matchup. I say that with really low confidence. Let's get on to the next one. All right, moving into the bantamweight division. We got Bekzat Almakan. Whew, it's getting harder. And Alexandre Topuria, Ilya Topuria's brother. So, you know, a lot of people are probably going to be hopping on that train. You'll be interested in my pick here. So let's get into it. Bekzat Almakan, 28 years old, 12-2 pro record, 1-1 in the UFC. He did lose to Umar Nurmagomedov. I got that one. Had practice. He fought him on short notice. And yeah, he did get dominated, but it's like almost like you just kind of forget about that one. Move on to the other fights. But great speed, explosive. Like he comes off so fast. He really looks pretty athletic. Good movement in the cage. He moves around a lot. Really hard to guess where he's gonna be. And he has KO power. He's getting KO finishes in there. Topuria coming in, 29 years old, 6-1 pro record. He's 1-0 in the UFC. He did get a win off of Kobe Thickness. Crazy name. He looked good in that fight. I think Thickness is not as good as Bekzat at all. I think Bekzat beats him 9 times out of 10, to be honest. Especially stylistically. This is a little bit different. Topuria, he fights like his brother. He has a really strategic stance, not a lot of movement, pushes forward and looks to get in those good exchanges, looks to throw those hooks off. And yeah, that's a big advantage for him, honestly. He does have 1 KO loss on the record, so he's chinny. I don't think Bekzat has that. So we'll see. And one thing everyone has to remember about the Topurias, both of them grew up grappling. They just haven't really implemented it, and they don't need to. I'll speak that for Ilya. Alexandre still has to prove something, and honestly, my pick right now is going to be Almakan by KO. I think he's going to chin him. We all know two brothers don't ever get too far. I think he just has the speed advantage here. I think he's going to be able to get in and out and lay more volume. I feel like Topuria is going to be able to knock some good shots off on him. But overall, I think the volume is going to win this fight. I think Almakan is just going to put it on him. He's going to have to. That's his only choice. I know he has a low significant strike landed per minute, but I think he's going to get it off. I think he's going to get the volume off. All right, let's move on. All right, coming into the light heavyweight division with the craziest odds of the night. Crazy. Almost to the point where why not throw a couple bucks on that? Anyway, we got Abdul Rahman Yakiev. I felt good on that one. I felt good on that attempt. Versus Rafael Kakera. You see it. Minus 3,000 favorite. Plus 1,000 dog. Anyone who puts their money on that, great pick. Great choice. All right, Abdul Rahman Yakiev, 24 years old, 7-0 pro record. He got a big KO on Dana White's Contender Series. He is coming from Khan as well. Elite Sambo grappler. So you already know. Come on, the big Sambo guys. He might have shaved. Watch, he's not gonna have a mustache come fight night if he doesn't have it in there. He has decent stand-up. I haven't seen a lot from the stand-up, to be honest. But I'm sure it's good. Coming in with these odds, there's obviously a lot more that I don't know about the guy. But no, from what I see though, he seems like the real deal. I think he's gonna get this one done. Rafael Kakera, 35 years old, 11-3 pro record. 3 of those losses are his UFC career. Stepped in and lost 3 times. Now, when you see him in his frame and you really think like, oh, this guy, he looks good. He looks like he could be good. And then you see the fight and it's just like he just throws leg kicks and then gets pressured. So obvious one. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on a minus 3,000 favorite. So Yakiev by KO. The momentum, younger, fresher fighter here. And you just got to apply pressure to finish. That's all you got to do here. So let's move on from this one. All right, coming into the flyweight division, we got Alex Perez versus Asu Almabayev. Alex Perez coming in at that plus 175 dog. Almabayev coming at that minus 210. Now, Alex Perez, 33 years old, 25-9 pro record, 7-5 UFC record. Training over at Team Oyama. All of his losses come to pretty respectable names in the UFC. He's a veteran at this point. He has been finished in most of the losses as well. So, he fights with a high guard. He has some KO abilities. Decent boxing. Good grappling. Good. I'm not going to say he's a high level. I just feel like his career, ever since he lost to Figueiredo, he tried to fight for that belt, and he's just been losing to all these guys coming up. And this is going to be a test for Almabayev. I think I don't want to, I wouldn't say overlook Alex Perez. You know what I mean? Now that he's, if some lines can change overnight and he can get up to a 200, I think there's a little bit more value. I'm going to stay away from the 175, but give me him at 200. Yeah, I'd probably take him. Almabayev, 31 years old, 22-3 pro record, 5-1 in the UFC though. Training over that Dar Pro team in Kazakhstan. Great grappler. He has pretty good stand-up. He's just an overall well-rounded fighter. I could see him doing good in any area, and I think that well-roundedness is going to help him versus this matchup versus a veteran like Alex Perez. Most of his wins are coming by either a decision or a sub. So, expect this fight to go over, probably to the distance, most likely. It's all about how hungry Almabayev is. I really like the sub here. So I'm going to go Asu Almabayev by sub. I think he's just going to overwhelm Alex Perez with the grappling. He's going to have the slight speed advantage as well. And he just has good momentum coming in. He has a very respectable loss in the UFC. I want to say it's to like Muhammad Naimov, something like that. So, if you're watching MMA, you know that name. Yeah, it's going to be the pick. Almabayev by sub. Let's get on to the next one. All right, coming in at the welterweight division, Nicholas Dalby versus Saeed Izagakmayev. Man, they're really testing us today. Nicholas Dalby coming in at that plus 270 dog. 41, you know what I mean? So don't hate it too much. He's a 23, 6-1 pro record, 7-5 in the UFC, coming from Rumble Sports. That's where he trains at. He was fighting in the Cage Warriors a little bit before the UFC, but that's a long time ago. We're not going to talk about that. But he's a good pressure fighter. I know he just got knocked out a few fights ago by Randy Brown. Not a bad knockout to have, or knockout E, or whatever you want to call it. One thing I did like back in 2023 though was that comeback win versus Gabriel Bonfim. It's looking a lot better now. So he was just, man, getting absolutely mauled, and just comes back and started catching him, and he damn near surrendered. And it's a crazy cycle. Dalby beats Bonfim. Randy Brown beats Dalby, and then Bonfim beats Randy Brown. Good MMA cycles going on right there. Now on the other hand, we got Saeed Izagakmayev, 31 years old, 22-2 pro record. This is his UFC debut. I like the amount of experience and that record coming in. He's not just some young guy 7-0 going against Nicholas Dalby. No. You know what I mean? I don't care who it is. Nicholas Dalby's probably going to win that. Experience is going to play a big role. But, he also fought in the One Championship, FNG, Guerrilla Fighting. These are all respectable, leagues around in MMA. So to have that record in those, I got a lot of faith in this guy. Training over there at Academy MMA, he's just an elite wrestler. Gives a lot of submission looks. And he looks really fast. His takedowns are fast. You know, his transitions are fast. He's real athletic on the ground. I really like that. And like I said, he just has good fight XP for the debut. He knows what he's doing. I could see him having a very successful debut. We're gonna go Syed Isakmaev by decision. All right, I think he's just gonna invest in the wrestling and the control time. And Nicholas Dalby's not really known for his grappling like that. He's more of just that brawler. Making his debut at 31 years old, he's in his prime age, you know. So if he doesn't win this, I don't think he's gonna be much, unless it's just a dogfight and you know Nicholas Dalby doesn't go down, because I know he just got knocked out, but he has a chin. Anyone knows he does have a chin. Randy Brown, I think, is the only person to knock him out. So we're gonna go Isakmaev by decision. All right, let's move on. All right, right here in the featherweight division, we got Bogdan Grad versus Luke Riley. Luke Riley coming in at that minus 260 favorite. Bogdan Grad at that plus 210. And I really like that line for him, to be honest. Plus 210. I think this should be a little bit closer. This is Luke Riley's UFC debut. You know, he was in the Cage Warriors after a win, and ran up to the mic, sign me, you know, with the English accent or whatever. He's also training over there at Next Generation with Paddy Pimblett, so he's one of his guys. He's 11-0 pro record in, you know, mostly the Cage Warriors. He had a crazy heart in that Alexander Lou fight. He got rocked, put down during an exchange, got a lot of ground and pound put on him, and he ended up coming back and getting a win. And I love and hate that, because he's very hittable. That's one thing I noticed. He gets hit. Those jabs are catching him. And he's 11-0. He hasn't lost. So you got to just respect the chin at this point. You know, it is in the Cage Warriors. UFC is a lot different, but so we're going to see how good his chin is. You know, Paddy Pimblett's shown to have a pretty good chin. He has been hit a good amount of times, so I don't know how that's going to go versus Topuria, though, but that's it's a side note. Anyway, I love and hate that, though, versus Bogdan Grad. You know, also Luke Riley has really good grappling. Something else I want to throw in there. He does have good grappling, so see how that plays out. Anyway, Bogdan Grad, 30 years old, 15-3 pro record. He's 1-1 in the UFC. He had a split decision win on the Dana White's Contender Series versus Michael Aswell. And I really respect him as a fighter, Michael Aswell. So I like that split decision. You know, it was a close, but I like that. You know, two dogs in there. And Luke Riley's shown he's a dog. His one loss is to Nathaniel Wood. And Nathaniel Wood, he just beat Jose Miguel Delgado, who I honestly put my money on, and lost on that one. I wasn't super confident, because, you know, Nathaniel Wood is one of those guys who he just pulls off the victories. He pulls them off. He doesn't even get finishes, but he pulls off those victories. He knows the points. He gets the takedowns when he needs it. And I'm not going to really count that loss too bad. So this is a really tough one for me, to be honest. I really like the line. So my pick's going to be Luke Riley by decision. He's going to get the higher output. Can he avoid the takedowns? But the dog is very live. I really like that value at the plus 210. And the pick is going to be Luke Riley. But I think you guys know what I'm hitting at. I see the value in the dog here. Not a dog call, but I see the value. I see the value. All right, let's move on. All right, coming in at the flyweight division, we got Tagir Ulanbekov versus Kyoji Hiriguchi. He's making his return to the UFC. He had a decent record. I know he had a loss versus DJ Demetrius Johnson. He's 34 years old, 34-5 pro record, 7-1 in the UFC back around in 2016. He has a very impressive record in Risen. Two losses, though, that he got back in his career that I really like. One versus Sakura and one versus Sergio Pettis. They both beat him at first, and then he came back and took that loss back. So it's almost like, he's still showing that improvement, and he can learn a lot from fights, and I really like that. He's a very well-rounded fighter, not prospect. He's been a prospect. Great wrestling. He's training over there at American Top Team, and he's a live dog here too. Coming at that plus 190. And I'm a big fan of Tajir Ulanbekov. He's coming 34 years old, 17-2 pro record, 6-1 in the UFC, training over there at Eagles MMA. So, right there with Khabib. He has shown to just kind of, if he's going against a grappler, he just outcompetes him. And that's really all it is. He knows where he needs to be. He's taken the back pretty well. He gets good boxing, good high kicks, nothing too elite, but they're pretty solid. He has that one loss versus Tim Elliott, who honestly has a crazy style. And he did get better as the fight went on, even though he lost, but he looked better going through the rounds. Now, I'm going to go Tajir Ulanbekov by decision, but Hiraguchi is a very live dog here. Plus 190, I think that's close enough to the 200. I think it's worth it. So my pick's going to be Tajir Ulanbekov. I believe in the grappling. I think he's just slightly better. And he has some solid wins as of late, so that's who we're going to go with. All right, coming in at the heavyweight division, we got Waldo Cortez Acosta making a comeback after, 2 weeks? After that eye poke versus Delija, and then he just came back and slept him. That was a wild event right there. Taking on Shamil Gaziev. This is actually a really good matchup. This is another tough one right here. I'm actually very excited for this fight. Waldo Cortez Acosta, 34 years old, 15-2 pro record. He's 8-2 in the UFC. He has one iffy loss towards the beginning of his career, and then he has a valid loss as of late, not too long ago, versus Sergey Pavlovich. He's a solid veteran fighter in this sport, so not a bad loss to have. I think he lost by decision, but he has clean boxing, and I like how he picks his shots wisely. He's patient. He doesn't really go too crazy unless he knows he has a guy hurt. And I really like that from him, especially being in the heavyweight division. He looks really, really calculated in there. And, I like seeing that from him, from a heavyweight. He's out here at MMA Lab. I know he's working on his wrestling. So not that really matters in this fight too much, but I think this is going to be a straight stand-up banger. All right. But yeah, we're going to see how all that plays out versus Shamil Gaziev, who's 35 years old, 14-1 pro record. He's 3-1 in the UFC. He had a submission in the Dana White's Contender Series, and then as of late, he's been getting knockouts. And then coming out of the Brave Fight Club, he's a good pressure boxer. Likes to just not move a lot, but just steady, just step towards you, put on a good slick striking. He does keep his hands low though, and I see that kind of being a problem going against Cortez Acosta. Hopefully he throws that guard up, but he is very calm and composed. He has a good little check hook when people do step, and he likes to get it off. So, and we'll see how that chin plays out versus Cortez Acosta. I'm going to go Waldo Cortez Acosta by decision. I don't think he's going to put him out. I know it's crazy saying that after what he just did 2 weeks ago, but I think this is just going to be a good banger. I think these guys are just going to put it on each other, and that's at least the safe answer. But he's recently fought, so I think he's just still in his groove. He's pretty fresh, and I think he's just going to have the slightly better combinations. and the speed. And I think that's going to play out in that decision victory. Pretty live dog, though. Pretty live dog. I'll say it again. Waldo Cortez Acosta by decision. Let's move on. Coming in at the welterweight division. This is actually another good one I'm excited for. We got Jack Hermanson versus Mikiteb Arobai. They're just getting me over and over. Jack Hermanson, 37 years old, 24-9 pro record, 11-7 in the UFC. And he's lost to very respectable names: Greg Rodriguez, Delice, Sean Strickland, Jared Cannonier, Marvin Vittori. So, not bad losses, especially when going against a guy that's not at the top. Those aren't bad losses. He does have some good wins, though, over Joe Pyfer, Chris Curtis, and Kelvin Gastelum. You know, some of them aren't too recent, but I think the most recent is Chris Curtis and then Joe Pyfer before that. He's good. He just, I feel like if he's not the one applying the heavy pressure, that's where he comes out. When he gets in that groove, though, and keeps that pressure on people, that's how he gets wins. Honest, that's just how he gets wins. Keeping that pressure and love. We're going to see if he can do that. I got faith in Jack Hermanson going against Orolobai. I'm not even going to pronounce the first name again. I'm not even going to pronounce the country. Kyrgyzstan? Yeah, come on. It almost makes you not want to, go against him. Just because of where he's from and the name. It is what it is. But he's 14, 2-1 pro record, 3-1 in the UFC, 27 years old. He's coming from the LFA and the ACA. He does have one loss to Maltese Rebecki. Rebecki was just pretty much able to avoid the ground and able to get the volume off, and that's how he won. But I'm going to say that's not a bad loss either. He has solid grappling, great footwork. And one thing I noticed, he has those slick uppercuts in the clinch. And that's what you need to be doing versus Jack Hermanson. So I do like that for him, but I'm gonna go Jack Hermanson. Not a confident dog pick, but I think the XP is just gonna carry. I think it's gonna take over in this fight as long as he can avoid the ground and maintain that pressure. He needs to not care about getting knocked out. He needs to take that out. Just fight the takedowns and put on that pressure. I think that's how he gets this done. Low confident dog pick. We're going Jack Hermanson. All right, let's move on. All right, moving into the light heavyweight division, we got Volkan Oezdemir versus Alonzo Menifield. Now, Volkan, decent favorite, minus 235, and I like that. I think these lines are very, very good. If they were a little wider, I wouldn't be mad at all. Alonzo Menifield coming in at that plus 190 dog. Now, Volkan, 20-8 pro record, 8-7 UFC record. Respectable names he's lost to: Carlos Ulberg, Nikita Krylov, Magomed Ankalaev, Yuri Prohashka. Very, very good names. Those are all championship fighters, essentially. Not Krylov, but the rest of them are all, Ulberg is going to be looking to fight for the title here soon. So, good losses. He's trying over there at Fight Move Academy. Good boxing blitzes. That's what I do like. He can get in and do some damage off those blitzes. And he applies pressure really well. He likes exchanges. He likes elbows. He likes clinch. He likes all that. Throwing knees off the clinch. Really good. And I think he does have a solid chin despite the ground and pound loss from Daniel Cormier and getting knocked by Yuri. But I think he still does have a good chin. I've seen him get hit pretty good times and doesn't even stumble too hard. So I really like that from him. On the other hand, Alonzo Menifield, when he fought Carlos Ulberg, he just came in with no respect and got slept. It wasn't no dogfight. He was just disrespectful and paid the price. So that's why I'm not too mad at that dog tag. 38 years old, 17, 5-1 pro record. He's 10-5 in the UFC. About half the losses are to good names. Some are so. Like Carl Zuberg, Azamat, Mirzanikov. Um, that's about it. And again, it reassures me of why I'm not too mad at that plus 190. He's training over there at Seasons Muay Thai, so he has slick striking. One thing I noticed, he ducks his head. He almost like level changes on when he goes to blitz. And that's going to be a problem versus Volkan. He's going to get caught with a knee. Honestly, and that's the pick. Volkan by KO. He's going to apply that pressure. He's going to win in these exchanges that they do get in. And I think if Alonzo Menefield blitzes, he's getting slept. That simple. So I think these lines could honestly be wider. He could be a minus 300. Give Alonzo Menefield that, plus 225 or something like that. I really like these lines. So yeah. Volkan by KO. Let's move on. So now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. The welterweight division. I think now the most exciting division in UFC. I think they've sort of shifted the throne now, especially with the move from Islam. All these contenders, all these guys coming in. This is going to be a good fight. Bilal Muhammad versus Ian Machado Gary. This is a good one. Welterweight, Bilal Muhammad coming at that plus 230 dog. 24-4 pro record. 14-4 UFC record. Just had the belt for about a day. It is what it is. Jack Della Maddalena came and took it and then got it took. And now Bilal Muhammad just doesn't look like Bully B anymore. Sorry to say it. And he had an impressive win before he got the belt versus like Sean Brady, and obviously to take it from Leon Edwards. Outside of those, okay. One thing I will say, that fight versus JDM, that was a dog fight. That was a great fight. I was honestly almost not a Bilal hater, but I just thought he was boring until that fight was phenomenal. That was a great fight. Win, lose, or draw. That was a great fight. So props to him on that. But now he's just not looking. It's not looking so good for him. He's going against Ian Machado Gary, the minus 280 favorite. 28 years old. He's the younger guy. Bilal's 37. 16-1 pro record. He's 9-1 in the UFC. He has one loss to Shavkat Rakhmonov before he just went ghost from an injury. He's fast. He has great striking. And as of lately, he's showing that he can wrestle. He showed that versus Carlos Prates, and he showed that versus MVP. When there's a striker that might have the slight advantage, now he's shown that he can take this fight another place. Now, how is that going to play out for Bilal Muhammad? Because Bilal Muhammad is an elite grappler. He's an elite boxer. He has pressure from every direction. This is a great matchup, and this is Ian Machado Gary's test. If he can pull out a finish in this one, man, is he right there in the Prates Morales, title shot type of way. Who's going for Islam here? And if Machado Gary, he's training over there with Charles Oliveira. He's showing he has those abilities now. And that's a game changer for his skill set. So let's see if he can get a finish here, though. He cannot let this go to decision, or he's going to be fighting one or two more times before he even gets a chance at the belt. Because these other guys are calling finishes. So I'm going to go Ian Gary by decision. I think he's just the younger, fresher fighter, the faster guy. I think he's going to get it out. But Bilal Muhammad, I think he's going to make this a great fight. I got faith, now he's hungry. So But we're gonna go Ian Machado Gary by decision. That's the pick. Let's get on to the main event of the evening. Arman Tsarukyan versus Dan the Hangman Hooker. Even though the lines are really wide, I think this is still going to be a fun one. I think the first 3 rounds are going to be fun. Maybe the championship rounds, that's when Arman Tsarukyan might take over. Or who knows, Daniel Hooker could show that dog, but I see a finish here. I see a finish here. And, you know, it's almost like you want to see Hangman. I'm not a huge Tsarukyan fan. So if Hangman won, I would be happy. I think that's cool. But Tsarukyan is going to be the pick. Arman Tsarukyan, 29 years old, 22-3, pro record, 9-2 in the UFC. He lost to Islam and Gamrot. And honestly, the Gamrot win was iffy. You know, I feel like it could have went either way. He is training over there at American Top Team. If you know, he's a high-level grappler. He has KO power, elite striking. He was going to fight for the belt before he pulled out of a back injury from training with Nina. And if he would have just not have done that, he could have had a chance for the belt. But Nina cursed him, and now he's paying the price. Now he's fighting Dan Hooker. You know, that's what happened. Dan the Hangman Hooker, 35 years old, 24-12 pro record, 14-8 UFC. He's more of a BMF guy. I don't see him, you know, eventually getting a belt. He had his chances. He line him up with Max Holloway or Justin Gaethje for a BMF belt now after this fight. That's what I say we do. But he's willing to take the fight out anywhere. But he's overall just a good dog. He did have an impressive win over Maltese Gamrot. He showed that he is a dog. He got those striking off. He showed good grappling defense, and he is a decent grappler, but he's not on the level of Arman Tsarukyan by any means. Tsarukyan's just up there. And if you do go watch his fight versus Islam, besides the guy that beat him early in his career, Arman Tsarukyan gave him a great match. He showed that he's high level. I really enjoyed watching that fight, and he's older. He's getting better. He's staying. You know, a lot of people are saying he hasn't fought in a while, and he hasn't. But he's staying active in mixed martial arts still. You know, he has some, like, I want to say 2 grappling matches in between here, so he's staying fresh. And we're gonna go Arman Tsarukyan by KO. That I think he's hungry. I think he's hungry right now. He's ready. If you watch the weigh-ins, he didn't even cut his hair. He has a full beard and full hair. He's locked in. He hasn't had time to go get a haircut. He's locked in. He headbutted the guy. He headbutted him. He's crazy right now. He needs this. He needs a finish. Him and Ilya. Oh, wow. That'd be a great one. Ilya's chinning him, but, you know, that's just my opinion right now. We'll talk about that when the time comes. Anyway, guys, I hope you liked the video. Like and subscribe. Meet me in the comments. Talk about your picks. If you like the beat at the beginning and the end of this video, DM me, email me for a way to get some beats. Excited for this card, guys. I'll see you next week.